have a new driver in the family. As Elizabeth has her permit now, and so that gives me a whole different perspective when I'm in the passenger seat to pay attention to things that I have not normally paid attention to as much. I've been driving for a long time, and so things are just very natural to me. I don't pay as close of attention, but now I need to for the purpose of instructing somebody else. And just so you know, she's a very, very good driver. But we have to pay attention to different road signs. So I'm going to put a few of them up here. Okay, you're familiar with some of the basic ones, like stop signs. All right, wrong way and one-way signs. The signs along that interstate that direct you to going right or left, and this far to this particular city. These are the directions that you need to follow. Some of them where you get signs that are bundled up with each other. I've put up one there that shows a private drive going downhill and a bicycle path that's going uphill. Okay, there's the curvy road sign, says that you're going to be facing this for a while. The road closed ahead sign. I love some of the crossing signs though. Okay, pedestrian crossing, school crossing sort of signs. But anything can cross the road. Okay, tractor crossings. The railroad crossing sign and the wildlife crossing sign. Now, depending on where you are, the wildlife can look different. So there's places where the horses may cross the road. Turtles may cross the road. I'm not sure about this next one, but I think it's sheep that are crossing the road. I have no idea where this one's from, but can you tell what that animal is? The llama, yes, okay? And the next one, it says that it's open range, okay? The cattle are welcome to cross, but it sounds like it's open season, because if you look closely at that sign, you can see the bullet holes in it. Now, I don't know if this is South Africa or Antarctica, but apparently penguin crossing is an issue in some places. And I don't want to be anywhere close to this one for the pedestrian crossing of the convicts. Another one doesn't say that it's crossing, it just tells you elephants. Be careful. I love this next one though. I think this must be from Roswell, New Mexico. Self-parking for the UFOs. Okay, now, this next series of signs here. Road ends in water. I've never seen one of those, but apparently, if you keep going, you're just going to go right into the water. Or the road may flood, but you can see that it already has flooded. Or this next one, there's a flood sign that obviously has been through a flood. I do not know where this next one comes from, but danger, keep clear, because somebody might be ziplining and get you in the back of the head. And then, of course, the dead end sign. There's an end coming, and you need to know it. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. If you want to turn to Mark chapter 13, that's where we're going to be, and we're going to be going through and talking about an end that is coming and the signs that are pointing to it. Now, one of the things that with these signs, each of these signs is indicating there is something coming, you need to be prepared, and there are actions that you need to take. You need to be prepared to stop. You need to exit. You need to look for wildlife. You need to park your UFO in this lot, whatever it is. There is something that is coming. A sign is not the reality. A sign is indicating a reality that is coming, and it's saying you need to be prepared. Get ready. Okay? So that's what we're going to find as we look in Mark chapter 13. Now, I'll get to here in my Bible. Now, in Mark, we've been going through just kind of chapter by chapter. Next week, we're going to flip things around and go back to chapter 11 because next week is Palm Sunday, and so we're going to go back to the Palm Sunday text. But we're going to go through the entirety of Mark chapter 13. It's 37 verses, so we're going to cover a lot of territory, but I think you're going to see that this is all tied together along one particular theme. So let me start us out by reading the first 4 verses. Mark 13, as he, Jesus, was going out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Teacher, behold what wonderful stones and what wonderful buildings." And Jesus said to him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left upon another which will not be torn down." As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew were questioning him privately. "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign when all these things are going to be fulfilled?" And I'll just pause right there. Jesus has been coming and going from the temple. This is the Passover season. It's very busy. We saw how he cleansed the temple. He had an argument with somebody in the temple. He was watching the widow putting her coins into the treasury there in the temple. And then as they're leaving, they're calling attention to this amazing temple. And it's not necessarily just the temple proper, but there's other buildings associated with this temple complex. And Jesus is saying, all this stuff's going to be torn down. Now we know this is because the Jews rejected Jesus. But as they go out of the temple, out of Jerusalem, they cross the Kidron Valley and they go to the Mount of Olives. So this is outside the city, looking back. And of course, the temple is the most prominent part of the city. The disciples are asking him, tell us, answer us a question here. When are these things going to be happening, and what are the signs that this is coming? Now, this is a question that people still ask a lot today. When are these things going to be happening? This book is full of prophecies. All kinds of predictions of what is going to happen in the future. And so often our question is, when? When? How do we know when this is coming? Okay, can you give us a timeline? How many years? How many months? Like, is there something that's going to happen and we know, okay, now it's coming. This is what's up. And so, if you flip through cable TV, you'll find these, some of these religious stations that have these preachers on there that specialize specifically in trying to go through and interpret the signs of our times. This is happening in Israel. Russia's doing this. This is happening with the economy, the mark of the beast. And they lay out all these things from Scripture and say, as we piece this together, this is the timeline and how things are going to pan out. Now, hopefully you don't get them who are nailing down specific dates as to when things are going to happen. We're going to find out why that's a problem later on. But we are fascinated with the when. When? So Jesus is going to answer their question now and go through and give them signs that you can look for that are going to indicate when is the end coming. When is Jesus coming back? Okay? Now, if you have your bulletin in front of you, and there's a little bit more detailed sermon outline than what I normally give, but I've got this outline. I kind of borrowed it from Rick Warren and then tweaked it a little bit myself. That's going to lay out how we can piece together these signs that Jesus is going to give here in this chapter. Okay, so first we're going to start with signs that are pointing to the end. They're pointing towards the end, something that's a long way off. When you're going along the highway, sometimes you'll see a sign that says, okay, Louisville is this many miles away, or San Antonio is this many miles away. It's off in the distance, okay? These are signs that are pointing to something that's way in the distance, all right? So let's look now at verses 5 through 8. And Jesus begins to say to them, see to it that no one misleads you. Many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will mislead many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be frightened. Those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise up against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will also be famines. These are merely the beginning of birth pains. Now, for anybody who has had a child or has walked with a lady through the birth of a child, you know that the child does not come instantly. Okay, there's the sometimes false labor that comes early on, and then there's the labor pains in earnest, and then they get closer and closer together until the baby is finally delivered. Okay, birth pains are a sign that something's coming, but especially with your first child, those things can be a long way off. I think what they call it Braxton Hicks, the false contractions that happen. Well, there's nothing false about them; they hurt. They're real contractions, but it doesn't mean the delivery is coming, okay? These are just the beginning of the birth pains, okay? Wars and rumors of wars. Of course, we hear that all the time right now. And there will be famines. There will be earthquakes, natural disasters. All of these things are pointing to the fact that there is an end coming. And I'm thinking as we get closer to the end, just like with contractions, these things may come a little bit faster, a little bit more frequently. But these are the beginning of birth pains. Now, he gives us two commands in here. Two things that we are not supposed to do. First of all, do not be misled. Do not be misled. There are going to be people who are going to come claiming to be messiahs. Okay? For those of you who are a little bit older, okay, Jim Jones, if you remember David Koresh down in Waco, Texas, these people who come and they claim to be somebody great. They claim to be a messiah or a deliverer, but they're not Jesus. They're not Jesus come back. And he's saying, do not be misled. This is going to happen. Imposters are going to come. Don't be deceived. But also, don't be scared. Wars, rumors of wars, other parts of the world. Is this going to cause shortages here? Is this going to affect the economy? Are we going to get invaded? Don't worry about it. Don't be frightened. These things are going to come. Just know that it's coming. So we should not get our feathers ruffled by the beginning of the birth pains. These signs that are pointing toward the end. Okay? But there's other signs that are coming. These are signs that are preceding the end. They're not just pointing to something off in the distance. They're like along the interstate, exit 1 mile. It's coming up. These things are close by. This next batch of signs here are going to say the end is getting really close. All right? So let's start now in verse 9. Be on your guard, for they will deliver you to the courts, and you will be flogged in the synagogues, and you will stand before governors and kings for my sake as a testimony to them. The gospel must first be preached to all the nations. When they arrest you and hand you over, do not worry beforehand about what you're to say, but say whatever is given you at that hour. For it is not you who speak, but it is the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. And this is what I call gospel tribulation. Okay, we hear about tribulation. This is tribulation that is going to happen to those who are gospel people. Now, I'm not talking about just Christians. Okay, people who wear the name Jesus, claim an affiliation. Who are the people that are getting persecuted here? Did you notice that there's a lot of speaking going on? If you were to look, if you got your Bibles open, I encourage you to do so, because not everything's going to be on the screens here, and I need you to see it in your text. Okay, Mark 13:9, it says you're going to be brought before courts, you're going to be flogged as a testimony to them. And then it says the gospel, okay, good news, is going to be preached, proclaimed to all nations. Don't worry about what you're going to say. The Holy Spirit's going to speak through you. Saying, speaking, preaching, proclaiming. This is for the people who are gospel people, who are sharing it with others. You are going to suffer. But you know what? That is a means of accomplishing God's end, because it says the gospel will be preached to all nations, but it says you're going to be brought before them as a testimony to them. When you are brought before a governor, a king, a court, and you're said, why are you acting this way? Why are you proclaiming this? This is a means of the gospel getting to these people. And maybe even beyond those people, whoever's observing this. Our suffering is a means of getting the gospel out there. And so we need to realize that as gospel people, there is going to be persecution or tribulation that is going to come to us as those who are bringing the gospel. That's to be expected. That is normal Christianity. And that is going to be a general tribulation that's going to happen to all of God's gospel people. This is going to be a means of gospel advance, and it's going to come at a time of gospel advance. Because the gospel needs to get out to all the nations. Now we know that this word nation does not necessarily mean Russia, Ukraine, Slovakia, as in geopolitical boundaried nations where you cross a border. Nation means ethnic groups. Okay, so it does mean the Russians, it does mean the Ukrainians, but it also means the Indians who are here in our community, the Japanese who are here in our community, the Mexicans who are here in our community. This is the different ethnic groups. So don't think that you necessarily, to get the gospel to all nations, means you have to travel. It might mean that you're talking to somebody at your place of business or at the gas station. We can be gospel advancing people to the nations right here in Columbus. Now, God may call us to go, and we certainly want to do that if that's what He calls us to. But we can be about this task even while we're staying at home. Getting the gospel to all nations, because that has to happen before Jesus comes back. But that gospel tribulation pales in comparison to what we call the Great Tribulation. Or you might even call it the greatest tribulation. Okay, that comes in the next verses here, starting in verse 14. But when you see the abomination of desolation standing where it should not be, let the reader understand, then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. The one who is on the housetop must not go down or go in to get anything out of his house. And the one who is in the field must not get turned back to get his coat. But woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. But pray that it may not happen in the winter. For those days will be a time of tribulation such as not occurred since the beginning of creation which God created until now, and never will. Unless the Lord had shortened those days, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect whom He chose, He shortened those days. And then if anyone says to you, behold, here's the Christ, or behold, here He is, do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show signs and wonders in order to lead astray, if possible, the elect. But take heed, behold, I have told you everything in advance. Now, most of us have heard about a time called the Great Tribulation. This is a time that at the end, or near the end of time, when things are going to get really bad. And He gives us one clear sign when the abomination of desolation is standing where it should not be. And we know from other texts, this is talking about in the holy place, in the temple. It's time to flee. It's time to get out of there. We're not called to run away with the gospel earlier. Okay, run away from persecution and the suffering. But here, if you are there in Judea, the area surrounding the temple, when this happens, you get out of Dodge. You go. Because it is going to get really, really bad. This is going to be the worst time of suffering and persecution that the world has ever seen or ever will. So it's not just the Great Tribulation. We could call it the greatest tribulation. But when this happens, we have to realize this is a sign that Jesus is coming. This is a sign that he is coming back, and it's getting very, very close. So this should be an encouragement to us. But again, false Christs, false prophets, and these are not just going to be proclaiming a false message. They're going to be able to do signs and wonders and miracles. Call down, things from the sky, healings, cursings. I don't know exactly what it's all going to look like, but they're going to be able to perform miracles. For what purpose? To deceive, if possible, even God's chosen people. So it's not to necessarily just impress the world. This is to try and deceive God's people, to get them to fall away, to turn away from him, to not hold fast and wait for him to come back. So those are the signs that are saying that the end is really close. Exit really close. Okay? Now we're going to look at the signs that are proclaiming the end. Okay? The ones that are saying that the end is right here. It is now. Okay? Verse 24. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. And the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers that are in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send forth his angels and will gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest end of the earth to the farthest end of the heaven. Lights out. Sun, moon, stars, it's all going to fall to pieces. It's all going to get dark. And then it says that you're going to see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. In Matthew, I think it is, where it talks about even as lightning that flashes in the west, is it even visible in the east? Okay, when lightning flashes, it lights up the whole sky. There is no doubt there's been a lightning flash. When Jesus comes back, nobody's going to have to say, oh, here he is or there he is, because everybody's going to see, oh, there he is. There's no question about it when Jesus comes back. Don't be deceived beforehand. When he comes, everybody's going to know it. And it says he's going to gather his elect from the four winds. That's when we get to go to be with Jesus. We get to go home to be with him. The angels come, they collect us, boom, we go up to meet the Lord in the air as he is coming back. That's the end. That's the end. And these are the signs that accompany it, these heavenly signs. So we have signs that are pointing towards the end, signs that are saying that the end is getting close, and we have the signs that are saying the end is here. These are the signs that you can look for. So the disciples say, when are you coming? What are the signs? And he says, here's one, here's all these different signs that it's getting close. But what are the purpose of those signs? They're not just for information. Road signs are not there just like, oh, that's curious, that's nice to see that sign. It's because we have to do something, all right? So we're going to have two parables that Jesus is going to close this with. The disciples didn't ask for parables. They said, what are the signs? When is this going to happen? And Jesus says, okay, there's the when, but that's not what is important. When is not the right question, or not the most important question. What is the right question? What am I supposed to do as a result of this, okay? So let's look at the first of these two parables. This is a parable about a fig tree. Verse 28, now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth its leaves, you know that summer is near. Even so, you too, when you see these things happen, recognize or know that he is near, right at the door. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But of that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. There's an indication. When all these signs that we just talked about happen, you know the season's about to change. Summer has come. But when exactly is it going to happen? We don't know. That verse right there, verse 32, hold on to that one, because you will hear people say, oh, April 22nd, this year, Jesus is coming back. On this date, this thing's going to happen. If somebody lays down a date and says, this is when Jesus is coming back, this is when the end is going to happen, they're lying. They do not know. No one knows except the Father. And so you can discount that person as a false teacher or a false prophet, because we are told you do not know. So in this parable of the fig tree, there is certainty and there is uncertainty. The certainty is the season is changing. Jesus is coming back. That we are certain about. But when is it going to happen exactly? We don't know. There is uncertainty. So we live in a balance of certainty and uncertainty. Now, let's go on to the next one, though, because this is going to tell us what do we need to do. Verse 33 starts about the journeyman, okay? The man who's on a journey. Take heed, keep on the alert, for you do not know when the appointed time will come. It's like a man going away on a journey who, upon leaving his house and putting his slaves in charge, assigns to each one his task, also commanding the doorkeeper to stay on the alert. Therefore, be on the alert, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming, whether in the evening, at midnight, or when the rooster crows, or in the morning, in case he should come suddenly and find you asleep. What I say to you, I say to all, be on the alert. And he uses this parable here about the fact you know the master's coming, but you don't know when he's coming. So there's two things you're not supposed to do and two things you are supposed to do. What's the first one? What you're not supposed to do? No slacking. No slacking. You need to be about the task that he has assigned you to do. You saw he assigned each of the slaves a task. Don't slack off. So what do you need to be doing? You need to be working. No slacking. Be working instead. Working at what? What's the task he's assigned you to do? Share the gospel with other people. And some of us have different roles in that. Some of you, your gifts are more in the area of serving. Some of you it's more in the area of speaking. Some of you it's more in the area of leadership. Okay, whatever the task is that God's given you, do it, but be working so that you are ready when he comes back. That's the first one. The second one, though, is no sleeping. No sleeping. You need to instead be watchful. Don't be snoozing when he comes back. He wants you to be awake and alert and ready and watchful. Okay, my translation says be alert, be on the alert. Some of them will say be awake or keep watch. Be watchful. So the fact that Jesus is coming should cause us to, okay, heads up, alert. Now, we just got a dog. We got a rescued border collie. Super sweet little guy, okay? His name is Cody. And Cody loves to be by the back door. Now, he loves the outdoors, but it's not so much that he is anything about the door. It's what's on the other side of that door that's important. Squirrels. He loves squirrels, okay? And so he's there, and you can see, if you know dog's body language, okay, the dog's kind of relaxed, but then the ears perk up, okay, the tail's up, he's up, and he's standing like erect, just like as tall as he can, and he is ready. He is watchful. Any movement in that backyard is my kingdom, my domain. That's the way he thinks of it. And so he's always watchful for any intruder, outside the fence, inside the fence. He is guarding that. He is watchful. We need to be just as watchful and saying, God, I am looking. What are the signs that you're coming back? You're going to find me hard at work when you do, getting your work done. So what's the takeaway from this? Be alert. Be alert and be active. Jesus is coming. So what does he want us doing in the meantime? Getting people ready for the fact that he's coming back. So what does that mean? You're going to do a couple things. One is that you're going to be telling those who don't know, or telling those who have not yet accepted that message. So we need to be evangelizing. The gospel of the kingdom is going to be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations before the end will come. So we need to be about God's global task, starting with right where we are right now. But also, we need to be encouraging one another and reminding each other that Jesus is coming back. Because we have a job to beautify the bride in preparation for the bridegroom coming. Now, we are the bride of Christ, so what do? We try and clean ourselves up. We try and get ourselves ready for the wedding. Make ourselves look pretty. Get rid of the stains, get ourselves in shape, dress up right so that we are ready when he comes. Now, what is dressing talking about? In the scriptures, that's righteous deeds. The white robes of the saints are the righteous deeds that we do. We're active about doing to get ready for our King who is coming back to us. So, we're going to prepare and have a closing song, and then after that, we're going to go to the Lord's table together. But as we do, I want you to be thinking, as you hear about all these signs here, what are you doing to ready yourself? Are you watchful and are you working? God, am I alert or am I kind of dull to what's going on around me? Okay, if you've you watch somebody else watching a movie or a TV or something on their screen, they're kind of zoned in on that, and you have to kind of shout sometimes to get their attention. They're not paying real close attention, okay? They are attentive to other things other than what's going on around them. He's saying, get your head up and looking around. Don't just look at what's here. Look for what is coming. And then work and labor accordingly. That's me. So, as we have this closing song, be examining your own heart. God, am I watchful? Am I working? And if not, if God shows you that you're lacking or slacking, then say, God, I want to get on board. I want to do things the way that you want. And as always, I'll be down in the front pew. If anybody would like to pray with me, you're welcome to slip in beside me.